Our bell work for today is what is heredity? Hopefully you're thinking about the passing of traits from parents to offspring. Take a look at this picture. What is it showing? Hopefully you're noticing that there are some parents and then their offspring. These two women got married. Here's her husband and here's the other husband. And then it's showing the kids that they had. So here is the child of these two, and here are the three children of these two. We're going to be looking at something similar to this family tree, but we call them pedigree charts. By the end of this lesson, we need to be able to use pedigree charts to trace traits through multiple generations of a family. A pedigree chart is a chart that's made to track which members of a family have a particular trait over generations. Usually these pedigree charts are made after a family member is identified as having a genetic disorder, and then the geneticist can track which families or which people within the family have that trait and which ones are carriers and how that trait got passed, and the likelihood of somebody else inheriting that trait in future generations. The pedigree charts can help the scientists understand how these diseases are inherited and even what chromosome they might be on, for example, the X or Y chromosome. The symbols that you'll see in a pedigree chart, anytime there is a box that represents male and the circle is going to represent female. Sometimes these symbols are open and sometimes they are shaded in. If they are not shaded in, then we know that that person does not have the trait. If they are completely shaded in, that person is affected, meaning they have whatever the disorder is or the disease. Again, open means they don't have the trait for it and they're not showing it. If it is completely shaded in, the person has that disease or disorder. Now, we've been talking about something called a heterozygous or homozygous, heterozygous or hybrid. Heterozygous and hybrid both mean that you have the dominant and the recessive trait. And we're going to add a third word that means the exact same thing. And we call that a carrier when we're talking about pedigree charts. The person carries the trait for whatever the disease or disorder is. So that means that the person who does not have it and the person who has it is either homozygous dominant or homozygous recessive. But if you've got a half shaded circle or box, then you are a carrier and you have the dominant trait and the recessive trait. You've got a trait for the disease and a trait not to have the disease. And these are where the traits are being passed, or those alleles are being passed from parents to offspring. But we don't know that it's being passed because the parent does not show signs or symptoms of that disease or disorder. Now, just like in the family tree we looked at, spouses, people who are married and have a child, are listed next to each other, and the children are listed below. So anytime you see a horizontal line, that means they are married. So here we have a husband and a wife. The vertical line tells us that the kids that are attached to this line coming down are all their children, and that is usually shown by a line with each child coming off of it. Notice that these do not have a horizontal line between them. So none of these people are married. These are all siblings. We have a sister, we have a brother, another brother, and then another sister. Now, something else to keep in mind is that these are listed in age order from oldest or eldest to the youngest. So you always list the oldest child farthest to the left, kind of like if you're reading across the page. So again, marriage, and then the line coming down and branching will show all the children that these two parents have had, oldest child to youngest child. So they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids, 2 girls, 3 boys. 4 of the children are not affected, they're normal, and we have 1 child that is affected. Some other symbols you might see. There are twins. If there are twins, it'll have the circles or squares to show what gender they are. And it will also have the line going across to tell us that they're identical. Or you will have them with their same point coming down from the parents connected, because both set of twins were born at the same time, roughly. But these are fraternal twins because there is no line connecting them, telling us that they are the exact same DNA because they're identical twins. So line means they're exactly the same identical twins, and then no line is the fraternal twins. If you see a break in that horizontal line, that tells us that the people are no longer married. They are divorced. And then when you have a slash through the symbol, that tells us that the person has passed away. So here are some Harry Potter pedigree charts. Think of, if you've read the books or seen the movies, think of which person brags all the time that they're a pure blood. Which of the teachers is a half-blood, and then which of the other students in Hogwarts is always being harassed because she's a muggle born. Both her parents were muggles. Hopefully you thought of Draco as the pure blood, Hermione as the muggle born, and Snape as the half-blood wizard. So you can see that Draco is a pureblood because both parents had the trait, and he has both traits for being a wizard. He's half-blood because one of his parents is not a wizard, and then she's a muggle-born wizard because both of her parents are non-wizards. When you look at the pedigree chart, there's going to be different levels to it. And those are going to be the generations. So you've got one generation and the children that they had. Here are those lines coming down from the parents. So these numbers 2 through 6 are all of their children. And then 1 is connected to 2. That's telling us that this is the daughter of these 2. But the husband is right here. And then going down, these are their 3 children. And their son-in-law right here, who's married to their first or oldest daughter. Again, we have one person here that has the disorder or the disease, but that person has not had any children, so we don't know if they passed it along any further. Over here we have the dad, who is the son of these 2 people. See how he's connected? This is his wife. Here they have 1 child. It's a son who is married. And then these are their grandkids. They have 1, 2 granddaughters and 3 grandsons. One of the grandsons has the disorder, and one of the daughters has the disorder. So that tells us that somebody here was carrying the traits. If it is on a X chromosome and it is a sex-linked trait, then the mom has the half-shaded trait for it. The dad must have it too because the daughter inherited the trait. And then that tells us up here that these people also are carriers, and that somebody up here, because this child has it and the great-grandchildren have it, somebody up here had to have been a carrier as well. Actually, both of them should have been a carrier because the daughter has it, so she would have gotten the copy from both parents. So generations are labeled with Roman numerals, and each individual within the generation is numbered from 1 to however many people there are. So this generation, it showed the 2 parents, and then in this generation, it shows 7 people, the 5 children, and the 2 spouses that married into the family. These are just some other examples. Sometimes they have both of the symbols shaded, and sometimes they shade just the ones that are affected. One of the sex-linked traits that you're going to be looking at today and looking at pedigree charts to trace the trait is something called hemophilia. This is a blood disorder. People who have hemophilia, their blood does not clot properly, so they can bleed to death because their blood won't clot and stop the bleeding. The reason it gets passed is on the X chromosome, but remember, boys have an XY combination and the girls have an XX combination. So here are the chromosomes for the dad. We've got the X chromosome, and it's showing the trait right here. So he does not have hemophilia. Here's his Y chromosome. Here are the mom's chromosomes. She has two X chromosomes that make her a female. And you have the one trait here showing that she is affected. And then she has the other chromosome that has the normal trait on it. So then we go down and we look at the children. This son inherited the dark blue copy of her chromosome, and he got the Y chromosome from dad, so he is not affected. Remember, you get one chromosome from one parent, one chromosome from the other parent. This daughter inherited the only X that the dad had, and she inherited the copy of her mom's chromosome that did not have the disease. This daughter got her dad's X chromosome and her mom's chromosome that has the disorder. But remember, if it's a recessive trait, the dominant trait takes over. So she is a carrier for hemophilia, but she's not showing signs of it because her dominant unaffected trait or allele is the one that she inherited from the mom, even though she's got from the dad, is covering up the one she got from mom. Here we have the Y chromosome that came from dad and the X chromosome that came from mom. But because there is no part on the Y chromosome to give a copy of the allele for it to be unaffected, there's nothing to match up with it. So this son has hemophilia now because he inherited that copy of it from mom. There is no other allele for the trait on the Y chromosome to overpower it like the girl had because she had two X chromosomes. Notice where that is located, that part is not on the Y chromosome. So with sex-linked traits, you only have to inherit one copy of it if you're a boy, because there is no other piece on that Y chromosome that makes them a boy to cover up and overpower. So if you get one copy of it, you automatically have it. If it's a girl, you have to have two copies of that trait that's to have the disorder before you can have it. So it's not that girls don't ever have these sex-linked traits. Color blindness is another example along with hemophilia. It's just not as likely because they have to get the two copies of it. Usually it shows up more often in males because you only have to get one copy of it because they've got the X and Y chromosome. It's carried on that sex chromosome.